It's 6:47 p.m. on a rain-soaked Tuesday in Singapore's central business district. Most of the lights in the glass towers have already gone dark. But on the 23rd floor of a pharmaceutical company's regional headquarters, 6 people are still sitting around a conference table. Coffee cups have been pushed aside. Jackets hang over chair backs. On the screen at the end of the room, 3 consultancy names are arranged in a neat row. The company is preparing to launch a new treatment across several Asia-Pacific markets. The science is strong, but every country has different regulations, different prescribing habits, and different expectations from doctors. A mistake in the research could delay the launch by months. A weak strategy could cost far more. The procurement director opens the first proposal. It belongs to a global agency with offices in more than 40 countries. The second comes from another multinational, a company whose logo everyone in the room recognizes. The third name is smaller. It belongs to a boutique consultancy with a fraction of the staff and none of the obvious scale of its competitors. For a few seconds, nobody says anything. Then a woman from the medical team leans forward. She's seen that name before. She can't remember exactly where, but she remembers a conversation about the next generations of doctors and the changing relationship between clinicians and pharmaceutical companies. Someone also remembers a short article about launching products across Asia Pacific. The marketing director recalls listening to a podcast during a flight from Sydney. None of these encounters had seemed important at the time. There had been no sales meeting, no urgent request for a proposal, no obvious buying signal. The people in this room had simply come across an idea that was useful, relevant, and intelligent. Then they moved on with their day. Now, months later, those small encounters begin joining together. The consultancy no longer feels unknown. It feels familiar. The team begins discussing a proposal with a different kind of attention, not because of a dramatic claim or an impressive number on a slide, but because somewhere in the background of their minds, a reputation has already started to form. Across the region, the founder of that consultancy is probably not thinking about this meeting. He has spent 15 years building the business, beginning alone in a bedroom in Sydney and gradually expanding across Asia Pacific. Most days, he faces the same frustration as any small business owner. The market is crowded, larger competitors are easier to remember, and at any given moment, most potential customers are not looking for help. That creates a temptation. Publish more, count the clicks, chase the immediate responses, turn every email, video, podcast, and article into a direct attempt to sell. But the people around the table in Singapore were not ready to buy when they first encountered the consultancy's work. They were busy with other projects, other budgets, and other problems. A sales message would have arrived too early. What stayed with them instead was an association. These people understand our world. The final decision will depend on price, capability, chemistry, and evidence. Content alone will not win the contract. But before any proposal can be considered, a company has to enter the room even when its representatives are hundreds of kilometers away. This is the quieter work of marketing. Not simply producing material and merely accumulating views, but influencing what people remember, what they feel, and who comes to mind when a problem finally becomes urgent. The effect may be invisible for 6 months, 12 months, or longer. Then, one evening, in a meeting you never knew was happening, someone points to your name and says, "I know who they are." I'm Neil Mackay, founder of 7 Million Bikes Podcast and Saigon Podcast Studio, and this is Vietnam Content Marketing. In this episode, Dr. Neil Doyle explains why customer behaviour matters more than performance metrics and why emotion sits beneath even the most rational business decisions. We explore how small brands can build mental availability, create valuable touch points, and stay remembered until the moment a customer is finally ready to act. This episode is sponsored by Saigon Podcast Studio, premium podcast recording space right in the heart of District 1 Saigon. Whether you're launching your first show, recording interviews, or creating professional audio and video content, Saigon Podcast Studio gives you the space, equipment, and support to sound and look your best. Come by for a free tour of the studio and see where your next great episode could be recorded. The link is in the show notes. So quick answers, one sentence, best content marketing advice you've ever been given.
Understand your customer.
Worst content marketing advice you've ever been given.
A focus on performance metrics.
Well, my next question is, what is the only metric that matters?
Mental availability.
Now, in a talk at Sydney University, you said marketing is more about changing customer behaviour than just selling. Now, for a business owner posting content every week, what does that actually mean in practice?
Well, at the end of the day, if there's no change in your customer's behaviour, there is no return on your investment. But really, the challenge is for each individual business owner to think about their own customer journey. What are those different behaviours along the journey that you're seeking to change? Ultimately, selling clearly is one of them, but there's many steps that might happen along the journey that you seek to influence. So the whole point is you need some kind of strategic intent around your content marketing. Is it about building a set of associations around a brand? Is it about driving a particular behaviour at that point in time? The whole point is you need to think about it. You need a strategy rather than just going ahead and launching content.
And when it comes to behaviour change, that is the most difficult thing to do, right?
Well, yes and no. If it was easy, we'd all be sitting happy. Again, you got to think about it. You need a plan, you need a strategy, you need an understanding about individual customer journeys. What are those touch points you have that you can build associations around your brand, how they think about you, how they feel about you. And even if you don't change, there's not an immediate behavioural response at that point in time, you're hoping that that investment in brand building is going to have an impact on behaviour at some point further down the line.
I love that about brand building and how you feel, because I remember one of my first jobs, so my background is in fundraising, and I remember I was putting on an event for about 10,000 people, big massive open day, and the manager at the time, she said something about brand. I can't remember exactly what she said. So I just put the logo everywhere. I printed it out on pieces of paper. I had it on every wall. And she was like, why have you done that? And I was like, it's brand building. It's so the brand is everywhere. And she was just like, no, that. I think she said it's how you feel about the brand. And I was like, I still cringe about that.
Absolutely. And particularly if you get B2B marketing, now there's some research done recently that says, in terms of your customers, 95% of your customers are not thinking about the service you offer at any particular point in time. So if you're sending out all this content, 95% of people are just not interested. So really then what's the intent? The intent is to build some set of associations that when they do move into that decision mode or actively begin seeking services like yours, that there's a bit of mental availability around your brand. Particularly for a brand like ours, we're a very small boutique brand. We compete against big multinational companies who've got tens of thousands of employees. So they're easier brands to remember. So we've got to work even harder to get people to remember us. So maybe something we throw out today is with the intent that 6 months from now, 12 months from now, 18 months from now, somewhere in the back of their brain they go, oh yeah, those guys at Delta MB, they had something smart to say about this.
Yeah, I love this because I know I'm really guilty of it. I mean, when we started the studio, I just wanted to do an ad to sell it. I wanted to jump straight to sales. And even now, I mean, it's so hard as a business owner because you want sales.
Yeah.
How do you help coach people to be like, I know you want sales, but there's all of this stuff you've got to do before then. How do you help people with that?
Well, for a lot of our clients, but also for ourselves, we see it as a journey. There's a starting point, begin people to hear about you. There's often a quite complex journey. And there's lots of potential different touch points along that journey. Ultimately, there's going to be a sale, there's going to be a product experience, and hopefully you repeat, because obviously it doesn't finish there. But then you can start thinking about what's the strategic intent of each touch point. yeah, this touch point is really about building a set of emotionally competent associations that will have an impact further down the line when they're thinking about, okay, who do I call about this problem I have?
Is why I love this podcast. I mean, already I'm just thinking so much. I was telling you before from our previous guest, I learned so much from this, and I'm already thinking like, what emotions do people have when we think of Saigon Podcast Studio when they see our reels?
Yeah.
I told you we've changed our branding now to be more Vietnamese focused, and they're pretty funny. I think maybe as well. I don't know if the team just that comes from me. I like to think that I'm pretty fun as well. Hopefully, maybe they're like. I mean, they even come to me like, "Can you be in this reel? We're gonna do this funny thing." And often I don't even know what I'm doing. I'll just sit down and pose and things like that. So hopefully that is what people associate our brand with, is fun and easygoing.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's going to be a whole bunch of associations you're looking to build. Some of those are going to be quite hard and functional, and some of those are going to be a little bit softer, a little bit more emotive, like refer, more to your brand personality rather than that, the explicit like value proposition. Yeah, absolutely.
And do you think you're saying brand personality, should that be a mirror of the business founder?
At some point, I think inevitably it will be. If a business is you, or lots of businesses start that way. There's an individual, of course, so your DNA is all over a business. And certainly from our experience, we've been up and running for 15 years. So from when I started a business in my bedroom in Sydney to where we are now, Pan Asia Pacific, my DNA is still a little bit across the business, but no, it's evolved massively. There's a whole bunch of other people who've been with us a long time. Their DNA is part of a business. We've created a value proposition quite separate and quite different to where we were 15 years ago. So yeah, I'd see it like a journey.
And that is really inspiring to hear. You started in your bedroom in Sydney 15 years ago. I'm so impatient. I feel like I'm not moving fast enough. Business isn't going well enough. You asked me earlier, how's business going? I'm like, nah, it's okay. But then every time I just take a step back from myself, and I think, where was I a year ago? And where was I 2-3 years ago? I was the same as you. It was me at home by myself.
Yeah.
I was a freelancer. Now we have a small team. We're working across the world. We have clients from New Zealand to LA, like literally the globe. And it's just sometimes taking a step back and going, yeah, it's going okay.
Yeah, when you're climbing up the mountain, it's good to look down a little bit, just see how far you've come, how much you've achieved, give yourself a pat on the back, and then sort of look up and see, oh my God, so much more to do.
So you guys at Delta MV, you are experts in behavioral insights. What's one principle from behavioral science that a small business owner could use in their next piece of content?
First thing you need to think about is emotion underpins everything. Even those decisions that we love to think as being very rational are all underpinned by emotion. So behavioral science is a great framework to help you unpack what some of those emotions are and give you some practical ideas about how you can tap into that. So very simply, one of the ideas we use a lot is the idea of loss aversion. The idea that losing $10 has twice the emotional impact of winning $10. So in marketing, we're so used to talking about the value proposition, what value we bring to our clients. Well, flip it and talk about what they lose by not working with you.
I'm sitting here thinking I just sent off a big proposal yesterday, probably the biggest proposal we've ever sent off. And I'm thinking, did I do that? Maybe I could have done a little bit more. But anyway.
You could list out the top 20 heuristics or nudges that you work with. And yeah, it gives you ideas about messaging. It gives you idea about content. It can give you ideas about how you can better support your clients.
And can you share an example of some content you've seen recently that you thought did really well?
Yeah, I read something. It was an article I picked up on LinkedIn just last week. It was from an Australian doctor, which is one of the publications directed towards GPs in Australia. And they did a really nice piece of research about the next generation of GPs and why they're different to the previous generations in terms of their level of trust with the pharma industry, how they consume communication, what channels they like, etc. It worked really well because that's an area I'm very interested in. It's there my clients are interested in. It was based on research. Yeah, it's just something I immediately brought value to me. I saw it, I clicked on it, I downloaded it. Why? Because when I saw that clearly, it was something of value and interest to me.
Now, you spend a lot of your time advising global pharma brands, and they are some of the most regulated marketers on earth. You can't make most of the claims that other marketers take for granted. What have you learned from those constraints that other business owners could apply?
Yeah, it's a really valid point. The pharmaceutical industry, quite rightly, is heavily regulated in the claims you can make. As an industry, a lot of people, their background is a medical background. They're very comfortable talking about the data, talking about the facts. But, going back to my earlier point about, we know that human decision making as a species is driven by emotion. So what can we do about that? So we do a lot of work with our clients about elevating the conversation from perhaps talking about a product feature to talking about a product benefit to talking about an emotional benefit. So, for example, you might have a particular group of clinicians who are very, very focused on the science of their particular therapeutic area. That's where their passion is. You might have another group of clinicians, also equally good clinicians, but are very, very focused, let's say, on the human element, their interaction with the patients. So the way you might talk about a specific piece of data to those two groups, it might be expressed in slightly different ways. And that really is, within that very kind of confined space of a regulatory environment, there is still room for maneuver to start thinking about, okay, what's the key emotional benefit that this particular group of clinicians is looking for? How might we express the data differently to this other group of clinicians who've got a slightly different emotional focus?
And do you see other exaggerated claims that maybe like, I wish we could do that, but we can do that? I'm just thinking from my perspective. I remember I was putting together something for the website and it was how many downloads that we've helped with. And whoever it was I was talking to, might have been our head of marketing, and she was like, just say millions. And I was like, but I don't know if it is millions. She's like, yeah, but nobody's going to fact check it. It's fine, you can say that. And I think it is millions now, but at the time it maybe wasn't. So we say we've helped with millions of downloads. Again, nobody's going to fact check that. But for you guys doing medicine and data and science, you just can't say numbers that are kind of close, right?
Yeah, that should be taken for granted. But no, we don't make numbers up, obviously. But I would challenge you in terms of you're saying about the millions of downloads. No, for me, that is a data point, whether it's true or not. The point is, okay, me as a potential customer, why would I care? What's the value proposition that you're trying to express by giving me that piece of data? Maybe it's the idea that I can help you be successful. And that 20 mil, that millions of downloads is really a proof point of your value proposition. It's not a value proposition in and of itself. So again, that's where marketing, having a clear strategic framework for thinking about what you want to communicate to who and why, then what is the role of data within that?
And I remember in the beginning as well, somewhere on the website, I had listed basically every piece of equipment that we had. And you're laughing at because somebody was just like, nobody cares about the equipment. I'd literally written down the model of the light stand and things like this. Like, why? People just want to know the outcome. Does it look good?
Yeah.
How easy it is to come in and record, not who makes the light stand and what model number it is. And that was how intricate I got.
Yeah, no, it's really natural. I think everyone does it. Certainly we've done it in the past. At some level, we've still to do it. We talk about ourselves. We talk about what we think is good about us. But really, great marketing, great content marketing uses a customer as a starting point. What are they interested in? That is the starting point. They're interested in growing their business. They're interested in having a professional service. They're interested in having an enjoyable time, producing content that really stands out. That is what you should be talking about. Then anything else about what kind of maker camera you have, at best, is a proof point that you can deliver that.
So what is the most overlooked content channel for B2B right now?
Not necessarily overlooked, but I think it's one that warrants a lot of attention and a lot of people are looking at. And that really is about AI search. As we all know, just a year ago, we would all go online, we would Google, it was all about Google words, etc. Now that we know that the large language models are being used for 60, 70% of search, this is a completely different ballgame. And as a business, we're thinking about it. What does this mean for us in terms of our website? How is our website structured? Is it open to be trawled by these large language models? What does it mean in terms of content? And certainly one of the things we're looking at is based on external advices. Maybe it's not only about video content, we should be also perhaps having a transcript of that can be more easily searched. The idea that AI search now is going to be based on a level of expertise in a particular area is going to have a big impact.
Even before the boom from AI, it's something that we do on our website and we advise is you should always have the transcript on your web page because Google will crawl that.
Yep.
But what you do is you kind of put it under a toggle button, so it's by default it's hidden.
Yep.
Because nobody really wants to see the full transcript when they go on your website, but it's purely there because Google will crawl it and read it.
Yep.
And the AI thing is crazy. I was at a conference recently, and the guy had been able to prove that he had essentially tricked AI. He'd made up an AI sport. I think it was called water horse racing or something like this. It was completely made up. And I guess he'd been able to do all these things online. And then he was able to show that if you went onto ChatGPT or any of these AI large language models and search for it, it would come up with the history and how many countries were participating. And he was like, I made this up and it's now been picked up by AI.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's crazy.
Yeah, there's when it first, I don't know, people started using it, 2 years back now, there's a lot of things about hallucinating, but our experience has been every week it gets better and better and better. So I think anecdotes like that are going to get fewer and fewer. But really, I think that's only for us, our business. We're thinking about, okay, how are we going to market ourselves in this new AI search-driven world?
Could you give me a bit more of an example on that? Say someone goes to ChatGPT or Grok or whatever all the other ones are called, Gemini. What do you think they might search for if they were looking to work with a pharmaceutical marketing company? And how are you making sure the Delta MV shows up on that?
We're making assumption people aren't going to type in, I'm looking for a market research company, a specialist in healthcare across Asia Pacific, which is perhaps what people used to do. Maybe now it's a lot more, I'm launching a new drug across Asia Pacific or these markets. What do I need to do? And we want to ensure that somewhere our service, our thinking is part of that answer.
So you would be one of the sources that it would reference potentially?
Yeah. So again, we're trying to build increasingly build our credibility of our brand, our expertise, our thought leadership.
And do you think podcasts can help with that?
Yeah, definitely. I've always been a big fan of podcasts anyway. It suits our world of marketing very, very well. We've got very clearly defined target market, maybe like 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people across Asia Pacific. And many of them, we already have a relationship with many of those people. It's about maintaining and feeding that relationship, giving them some value, having an excuse to stay in touch with them. And podcasts for us help enable us to do that really, really well.
Now, Delta MV is a boutique consultancy, not a massive marketing agency with a massive team. How are you marketing Delta MV day to day?
Yeah, it's a challenge as a small boutique brand, very, very specialized. As I shared earlier, at any point in time, probably 95% of our target market are not actively seeking out our services. As a small brand, by definition, we're easily forgotten. We're competing against big global players with tens of thousands of employees. So that's why it's really, really critical that we maintain this ongoing relationship. We maintain both frequency of touch point as well as quality. So quality really is about, that thought leadership position that separates us from our competitors, but also frequency. So, if we send an email, we make a call, we need a reason. We can't just say, hey, how are things? What are you doing? No, what we say, we try and bring value. So if we reach out to someone, we need to bring value to that interaction, which is a fundamental principle for me of good content marketing. So we need to understand what they're interested in. Hey, here's something we did. Here's a bit of thought leadership. Here's a bit of thinking. Here's a bit of research that we did that we believe you will find of value. So really, that's what we do. I said we've got very clearly defined target market. For many of those, we know exactly who these people are. So we're reaching their email, other channels, specialist conferences, etc. And podcasts play a really, really useful role in that, as in it's kind of easy to digest, it's short, it's flexible. We can do shorts from it, we can do the longer version. We can very easily move from, let's say, an interesting podcast to a short white paper that can be downloaded. So really, the podcast really is a central part of the whole marketing platform.
So do you have some examples of how a podcast has had some direct consequences for you?
Yeah, it really helps those two key marketing objectives that we have about brand building that set of, what people think and what people feel about us, and also just frequency of touch points that we have. So it gives us a really, really good excuse to get in touch with people. We can bring something of value, something that we know they'll find interesting.
I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember in the beginning when you did your first podcast, when we did your first podcast together, talking about those touch points and having a reason to talk to people. I remember you said to me, we sent out the first podcast and immediately we got a response saying, hey, we hadn't heard from you guys in so long. Let's have a meeting. And it led to, I think, like a big contract.
To be honest, that's pretty rare. But yeah, I'd expect it to be rare because, for us, it's not like a performance marketing getting an immediate response. It certainly has happened and that's great. No, we're not going to say no. But for us, really, it's about playing the long game. We see it as a very, very useful brand building device, particularly to a broader range of stakeholders. Increasingly we're learning in business to business marketing. You've got your core decision maker, but there's loads of other people within the business that, also can have a role in decision making, maybe the legal team, the market access team, the regulatory team, the HR team. So podcasts are a great way of reaching out to that broader group of stakeholders within a business. At some point when they're looking at competitive pitches, now they're, Delta MB, I know who they are. They're the guys who did this, rather than like, who the hell are these people?
I mean, I just loved everything about that, and the reason why, for many reasons. One is it's about having a niche podcast. That's what we try and tell people. Podcasts are not Joe Rogan. They're not the Mel Robbins podcast. These are all backed by massive studios. They reach thousands of people. They're not really selling much per se, apart from just generic advertising. I try and tell people, if you get just 50 people, even 10 people that listen to your podcast, but those are 10 decision makers. Those are 10 people in your field who will maybe use your service one day. That's way more important than, I've had a meeting before where they said, we want 5,000 views. I went, why? And they went, because we just want everyone and anyone to watch it. And I went, but you do IT security. The only people who will ever buy your product are CTOs or CFOs or CEOs. Like, you'd be better having 50 of them watch your content than have 5,000. Like, no, our KPI is 5,000.
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
Which goes back to what I was saying earlier. Do you mean it's, what's your strategy? No, what's the strategic intent of each activity? Podcasts, they're a technique. It's not a strategy. What's your strategy? Who do you want to reach? What do you want them to think? What do you want them to feel? How do you want them to act? And then think about the role of podcasts within that.
Well, Neil, thank you very much for joining us on Vietnam Content Marketing.
Been a pleasure.
Vietnam Content Marketing is produced by 7 Million Bikes Podcasts and recorded in the Saigon Podcast Studio. This episode is hosted by me, Neil Mackay, with production, editing, and support from the 7 Million Bikes Podcast team, Tae, Huan, Ling, and Chi. Thanks for listening. Follow Vietnam Content Marketing wherever you get your podcasts and visit 7 Million Bikes Podcast to learn more about the team behind the show.